Good evening, dear students. Today I am giving you a note on Edward Bond, whose name is associated with the Aggro effect. His full name is Thomas Edward Bond. He was born on 18 July 1934 in North London, a famous English playwright, theatre director, poet, theorist, and screenwriter. But he remains very controversial because of the violence shown in his plays. Regarding this Aggro effect, which is the short version or a slang for aggression or aggravation, referring to anger. This anger and violence due to anger. This becomes a trope in almost all of his dramas. Nearly he wrote 50 dramas. And behind this kind of violence presented in his plays, his childhood experience is worthy to be mentioned. As a child during World War II, though he was evacuated to the countryside, but he was present during the bombardings on London in 1940 and 1944. So he witnessed the bombardments on London city, the terror, shock, and violence, and people's death, killing. This all he saw. And this exposure to the violence and terror of war perhaps shaped themes in his work. It became a permanent scare on his psyche, and though he was evacuated, sent to countryside, but this evacuation also developed in his mind an awareness of social alienation. So these two things we see that Bond notices the violence prevalent in the society and wishes, aims to find out the cause of this violence. Moreover, in the modern era, he finds the attention of the society is on the materialistic gains, materialistic development, which is causing neglect to the humane content aspect of the society. In the society, people are not connected to each other and they feel alone, lonely, alienated in living in a strange world. So this kind आपने देखा कि सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर पे जो बम्बार्डमेंट हो रहा था वो सब उन्होंने बचपन में देखा, तो वॉर की विभीषिका ये उनके दिमाग में छप गई। और इस पीरियड में जब उन्हें कंट्री साइड पे दूर रहने के लिए भेज दिया गया था कि वॉर के सीन से वो दूर रहें, तो उससे भी उन्हें लगा कि समाज में लोग एक दूसरे से कनेक्ट नहीं हैं, अकेले पड़ गए हैं अपनी समस्याओं के साथ। These two things became very important, and perhaps they shaped his plays. Regarding his work, though he wrote some unfinished plays as well, but the very first one, which is called First Real Play, was staged at the Royal Court Theatre in 1962, is The Pope's Wedding. The title itself is very amazing. A Pope's wedding is not possible. So it reflects an impossible ceremony which will never happen. So though it is written in a naturalistic manner, but which is not possible, may be naturalistic, but falsely. This drama is set in contemporary Essex. That play shows the tragic circumstances. What are these? The place presents death of rural society, brought about by modern post-war urban living standards. So post-war, after this modern post-war, there was much display of science, technology, much development, advancement, but all this technological advancement, though opened up new vistas, new areas of experience for the rural society, but these were not very nurturing. People of rural society came to know about urban living standards and got influenced by these also, wanted to change their lifestyle and their own native way of living, their social fabric, their social structure. This all was disintegrating, changing. So these people, the rural people, are subject to urban living standards influence, and thereby they face tragic circumstances because these things they could not easily meet out. Next, the play which became very important, and it's brought a big change in the field of drama, and through this play you will better understand his dramatic technique of aggro effect. So here we come to next play, Saved, which was staged in 1965. In this play, we see that the youth are suppressed by a brutal economic system. We see the problem of youth, how they struggle hard to make their career in modern time where there is much competition. They get educated, but the settlement in life becomes very difficult for them. So the same thing we find here. Youths are suppressed by brutal economic system and become unable to give their lives any meaning, find their lives meaningless. And this meaninglessness of their life drift eventually them into barbarous mutual action of violence. People dissatisfied in their life, unable to sustain themselves economically, crushed under the brutal economic system which is based on the exploitation of the have-nots or the proletariats. And the effect is when they are not able to sustain themselves economically, ultimately that affects other aspects of their life as well, and totally depressed, dissatisfied with their living condition, they turn towards violence. So among these youths, one character is Len. Though he tries to make people understand not to be involved in violence, but ultimately turns toward it. In this way, we see that in our society, we have such an economic system that ultimately leads the people or the outlet to their dissatisfaction comes in the form of violence. The play shows the social causes of violence and opposes them with individual freedom. Social causes of violence. I would like to mention here, you are seeing during this COVID period, people are attacking the corona warriors, and it becomes very strange to understand that what, is the logic behind it. But still it is witness. So there are other causes. And when they find themselves helpless, so ultimately they go for their individual freedom in the manner of doing anything like. So this is though a very illogical behavior, but is happening. It happens. People become violent, and Bond's basic object was to trace the root cause of such kind of irrational violent behavior. This play said it actually included a scene where these aggressive youths, they stone a baby. Very strange behavior. Saved included a scene featuring the stoning to death of a baby in its pram. एक बच्चा अपनी गाड़ी में है, बच्चा गाड़ी में है, और उसको लोग पत्थर मार मार के मार डालते हैं. Unimaginable. How people can go to this extent? But people can go. It could come somewhere, somewhere. You saw this lynching of two sadhus and one driver in Palghar. So recently it had happened. It is not something unknown to the society. One point I would like to mention here, this kind of scene was not allowed to be presented on the stage. There was still the Theatre Act of 1843 was in force. And this Theatre Act of 1843 says that scripts were to be censored or checked by the Lord Chamberlain's office before being presented on the stage. So this Lord Chamberlain's office did not allow to put this kind of violent scene on the stage, but they wanted to censor it. But Bond refused to alter a word, claiming that removing this pivotal scene would alter the meaning of the play. There we find the Aggro effect. Bond wanted to show such kind of violent action on the stage which will shock the audience emotionally, will fill the audience with revulsion, and then will force them to think over the act being performed. They must be pressurized to think why such kind of thing is happening, why this is being shown to us. So, unlike Bertolt Brecht's alienation effect, he wanted emotional involvement of the audience into his violent scene and shock them to the extent that they become contemplative of the causes of this kind of violent action. Now, it was due to Bond's insistence that the scene of stoning to death of a baby in its pram was presented, and later on this saved became a masterpiece, and it also brought about a role in playing in the abolishment of the theatre censorship. This Theatre Act, which was in force since 1843, ultimately was abolished, though the play, this was staged in 1965, and this abolishment happened in 1968, but it was due to the prime influence of Edward Bond's play Saved that the censorship was abolished, and it gave this play gave way to new dramatic techniques, and Edward Bond was very much open to use new content, and he wanted to shock and jolt his audiences to make them think over the current issues of conflict, of violence. In this chain of shock, his one play is also worth mentioning, surreal play Early Mornings. Again, he continued to defy the censorship, and was in 1967 that at the same Royal Court Theatre, this play was put up, Early Mornings, which portrays a lesbian relationship. And these characters are not, the very ordinary one. He presents Siamese sister twins in through these characters. He presents the lesbian relationship between Queen Victoria and Florence Nightingale. So there we see that Bond is a very radical playwright. He never hesitates to raise a controversial issue and is ever ready to draw audiences' attention to the taboo scripts or themes, to introduce them to new aspects of life. Here you see, and he was such an influential playwright that he could defy the censorship and presented this lesbian relationship in early mornings. Now, you will come to know how much prolific writer he was and new dimensions he could bring into his drama. One of his important play is Bingo. In 1974, in this play, he presented retired Shakespeare as an exploitative landlord, important yet compassionate witness of social violence, who eventually commits suicide, repeatedly asking himself, was anything done? So, I'm not going into much detail, but you see that in Bingo, he presented uh, Shakespeare in his retirement, Shakespeare as an exploitative landlord who witnesses social violence and is not responsive, always asking, was anything done? Kuch hua kya? So, in this way, we find out that he attacked or challenged writers as well, that those who in their Elizabethan leisure were writing to please the kings and queens, neglecting the social issues. His another play is The Fool. Here again, he challenged the poet John Clare. In his own poetry, the depository of the spirit of this rural rebellion against the growth of modern industrial capitalism. So this the economic scenario, the as you see, Karl Marx was concerned with this capitalism. In the same manner, we find that this conflict between modern industrial civilization and the rural workers and uh, this negligence of this issue in the writings was also one aspect of his creativity. The failure of this historical class war eventually drives him to a madhouse. So you see, where Shakespeare was not concerned, John Clare was concerned with his social aspect, the economic grievances, suppression of the people, and he could not bear it. His both plays won awards and acclaimed by the people. Bingo won the Obie Award and The Fool was voted Best Play of the Year by Plays and Players. So these two plays of Edward Pond are also important. You may get some question on them. Next, where he made one innovation in the drama is The Woman. This is the play which was performed on open stage. First contemporary play performed in the recently opened Oliver Auditorium. And though it was not very much appreciated by the people, but it was an aesthetic success. It was a new thing to present a play, innovative use of the huge open stage, the first kind of experience in this domain. You must remember this name, The Woman by Edward Bond, presented in Olivier Auditorium, that is the open stage. Now there comes the list of some important plays written by Edward Bond. Till now, you might have learned that aggro effect is the expression of anger and violence, extreme anger, which culminates into violent action, and the purpose was to shock the audience to get them emotionally involved in order to draw their attention to the cause of such kind of violence. List of his plays, the important one I have marked. This one, Narrow Road to the Deep North, is also important. There goes this list. One is A America. This is, the title itself is very innovative. Here in the pronunciation, we have to make the use of sneeze. जब भी छींक आती है तो हम अटक के बोलते हैं ना, ए अमेरिका, something like that. He wanted to record his experiences in the workplace, and in his workplace, he once gave a situation when he was uh, doing practice with the artist. तो उनको एक सिचुएशन दी कि तुम्हें दूसरे ग्रुप के वॉर की कंडीशन में तुम्हें दूसरे ग्रुप के बच्चे को मारना है, जाके उसे किल करना है, लेकिन हर एक्टर ने इसको करने से मना कर दिया. One, the balancing act, you could remember this name. Underroom. He also wrote for TV and cinema, was a screenplay writer, and did much in these areas again. So ultimately, I would like to revise you this aggro effect. It is a slang term, बोलचाल की भाषा में, meaning aggravation or aggression or anger, which comes to the point of losing control. The anger or aggression reaches at that point, which is called the threshold, where losing control, but in an effective manner. This aggro is not something like, useless happening. It is with some motive. According to Bond, violence shapes and obsesses our society. And if we did not stop being violent, we have no future. Two examples I gave during my lecture. We have to think over them. Really, why such kind of action are taking place in our society? Where our mind has gone, where our logic, rationality has gone. His aggro effect therefore demanded and directed attention through shock or revulsion. What Robert Bolt would call the slap on the face. कभी कभी जब चीजें समझ में नहीं आती हैं तो स्लैप, एक चाटा मारने से शायद इंसान होश में आता है. Something like that. That kind of effect he was looking for. He designed his plays to disturb the audience emotionally, to involve them emotionally. इतना ज़्यादा इन्वॉल्वमेंट हो जाए जो सोचने पे मजबूर करे भावनात्मक रूप से. Social values are shown to us arguably in such a way that we are shocked to own them. इस तरीके से प्रेजेंट किया जाता है सामाजिक घटनाओं को जो ऐसे क्वेश्चन उठाती है कि उनको हम अपनाने के लिए या सचमुच ऐसा होता है ये मानने को भी तैयार नहीं. और वहां पे आता है कि वी आर अनेबल टू एक्सेप्ट देम, बट दीज आर द रियलिटीज. देन व्हाई इट इज हैपनिंग एंड व्हाट शुड बी डन टू अवॉइड देम, स्टॉप देम. दैट इज द पर्पस ऑफ द एग्रो इफेक्ट. आई होप this will help you. That's all for today. And an MCQ assignment will soon be posted for your practice. Okay, thank you.